Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Sports Lab podcast. A little bit later than usual today, so sorry. I'm here with my good buddy Alex Miley. Say hi to the audience.
What's up?
We're ready to go here. We have a lot to talk about today, Alex. We have the Sabres, we have the MLB with the trade deadline, an update on the MLB season, NFL breakdowns, and a nice little tidbit here our rankings of the teams for the upcoming 2024-25 season. So that should all be fun. Once again, let's get into the Sabres, though. UPL locked up long-term, a $5.475 deal for 5 years. What are your thoughts on the contract?
I absolutely love this contract. I think he's gonna if he continues to develop. I mean, 2 years ago he was barely even like playable, and then last year he takes that step into that very good top 10 goalie range. Like, yeah, he wasn't Vezina caliber, but he was a top 10 goalie last year. And now we're getting him for under 5 mil a year. Like, and he's still very young. It's not like he's like a 30-year-old who just had a random breakout. He's what, I think 24, maybe 25
25?
now. I know. Yeah, I wanted, yeah, he's very young, so he's only going to keep getting better. And to get him for under 5 mil a year, the no movement clause that they have from years 3 through 5, not a big fan of that because if Levi develops and we get tight on our cap, there was a lot of people that thought, oh, maybe we just trade UPL like year 4, and then it'll help save us some money and we get some good value at that point. But obviously, that's a lot of years down the line. But I I guess maybe that's just what they needed to get it at this. Maybe if they didn't add that, it would have had to been like 5 or 5.25. So maybe them adding that, we were able to shrink it in a little bit. But who knows? Maybe in a couple years he ends up waiving it. So that's just something. If I had to nitpick, the only problem I had, but I think the value is great, and to get it for 5 years, I think Kevin Adams has done a really good job with a lot of these young players, locking them up before they take that real big step. I mean, Darlene. I mean, I guess not so much Darlene. I mean, but Tage Thompson before he took the step, Cousins before he kind of took a step. Power, it's UPL is projecting a lot of growth to where if these contracts, if they keep getting better, that it's going to be like steals, and then if they don't get better, then it's like, all right, they're okay contracts. Then it's not like it's a super risky one because they've shown what their floor can be, and then you're signing them hoping if they get to the ceiling, it's a steal. So I really like what he did with that extension.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, on my side here, the one thing I didn't care for is the 5 years. I'm sorry, I like UPL a lot. It's just after year 2 or year 3, maybe even year 4 if we're lucky, Levi is going to be ready to go. He's going to be the starter, and we're going to be paying the backup goaltender $5 million. And like you said, like just a few seconds ago, like that no trade clause for the last 3 years of that deal is going to make it really hard to move on from that kind of a contract. Once Devin Levi's deal is up and he has to extend with us, is that going to be a tough conversation to have? Because he's going to have to take a pay cut if we want to keep them both, if Luukkonen's not willing to be traded. And that's a really big risk for Kevin Adams to take. While I do like Luukkonen for the short-term aspect, I think he's a great goalie, definitely top 15 in the league. I could see top 10. I really like the goaltender. It's just, I don't know about those last few years. Right now it looks good, but I'm wondering if this could backfire in a couple of seasons.
My
But
question though, oh, I was just gonna say my question you brought up about paying the backup 4.75 mil. But is he going to be the backup? It could be something similar to the Boston situation where they play 50-50 and then you just ride the hot hand, which I mean, it worked out decent for Boston. I mean, goaltending wasn't the issue in the playoffs this year. I mean, Jeremy Swayman was an absolute stud. So it's not like that really backfired in their face. And then they traded Allmark. I mean, yeah, they didn't get great value for Allmark. A lot of people thought the Senators robbed them, but still, I mean, they still did get a first round pick. So
late first, but
who?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean late first, but it's still a first. I mean they got some decent value, and that gold. I mean they set the regular season points record 2 years ago with that tandem. I mean, yeah, they lost in the first round, but I think again I don't see the problem. The last couple of years has definitely not been goaltending, and they've been running that duo basically 50-50, riding the hot hand. So you could see something like that. So I am not ready to get. I'm not too upset at the length.
That's fair indeed, but we're going to move on to the other two guys here, Beck Malistine and Peyton Krebs. Krebs has not been extended yet. The RFA restriction is still with us, so we can still re-sign him. It's up to us, though. I don't know if it's the right call right now. We'll figure it out soon. But another little tidbit for Beck Malestein, he is under contract for the next 2 years at $2.7 million, 1.35 a year. What are your thoughts on that contract?
I really like it. A lot of people were a little upset that we gave up a second rounder for him, but we really need to reform this bottom six that was just absolutely terrible last year. Especially that fourth line was just was brutal. I mean, there was no offensive talent, and then the defensive numbers besides Gergensen were not that good either. So I think this bottom six got a lot of upgrades, and Malenstein's involved in that. They really have a vision going forward for that bottom six. A lot of very fast, great defenders. And I think that's perfect. I mean, 2 years ago, think about why our team was so good. We were super fast and flashy. So now they're getting a bunch of super flat, but our defense was the problem. So now they have a bunch of super fast guys, but that can also play defense. So it's not like we're giving up defense to get speed like 2 years ago. Now we have the defense and the speed. So I really like that. I think 1.35 a year for a fourth liner is pretty good value, especially someone of his defensive prowess. So I really like the extension.
As do I. I really think it's a great addition. Again, with the second round pick, I was a little upset. I didn't really know the name off the top of the head. I was a little concerned. After reading more into this guy, he feels like the perfect replacement for Zemgus Girgensons, the younger, and I think improved Zemgus Girgensons, as sad as that is to say. Girgensons really lost a step after that All-Star appearance, and it's sad to say that considering he was one of my favorite players throughout the 2010s, the only one we really kept, but it was nice while it lasted. It's nice to move into this new era with Beck Malestein. I think he fits the role perfectly there, and I'm excited to see what he can do with us this year, especially if we pair him with Aubé-Kubel, who they're two of the most physical guys I've seen.
Yeah, that fourth line could be very frightening. And then a lot of people think like maybe Greenway goes in that line. I would not want to face that line. That's three very physical.
Center. He played center when he was drafted by Minnesota.
I thought
similar to
Malestein was a center. Malestein was a winger?
Malestein's a left wing, and then Aubé-Kubel's right.
Yeah, or maybe they go Greenway as a third line winger, and then they have Lafferty as that fourth line. Honestly, there's like that bottom six. That bottom six has like 7 or 8 guys that I feel comfortable. If they're on the ice, I feel comfortable with them on the ice. Last year, that bottom six, there was 2. I mean, Gergensen was decent defensively. Greenway, when he played in the bottom six, all right, yes. And then Middlestat before we traded him. The rest of the bottom six, when they were out there, was like, please just don't allow a goal. Hopefully our top 6 can win us this game because you're giving us nothing. Now it's like, now I feel confident that when the bottom 6 is out there, they can make a couple plays, but at the same time, they're not going to lose us the game, which is what we need out of a bottom 6, to not lose us the game by giving up a bunch of goals. Just slow them down, maybe make a play here or there.
Exactly. And I like where we went with this offseason. I know we had a lot of different ways we could have went about it. We could have traded for that amazing superstar player like an Ehlers or a Martin Necas. We could have, did something with Matthew Savoy a little bit better than what we got with Ryan McLeod. There's a lot of different things we could have done this offseason, but realistically, the approach here is very phenomenal in my opinion. I think they're banking on players like Benson and Quinn to break out and make those plays. And I feel like this is a very big prove it year for them. Like, this is the year where they really have to get it done. And if they can get it done, I really think they can at this level. Jack Quinn's been amazing when he stays healthy. Hopefully he can stay healthy for a full 82. And realistically, I like the additions of Beck Malestein, of Sam Lafferty, the additions to the bottom 6, the Ryan McLeods, because those are going to win us the games, not going and getting more help for the top 6, because at the end of the day, the top 6 can do whatever it wants, but they can't be out on the ice all 60 minutes. And that means that there's going to have to be some stepping up to do on the third and fourth lines of this team. And I feel like we just have to trust Kevyn Adams and what he's trying to do.
Well, hopefully trust is a little low in Sabres fans missing the playoffs for 13 straight years. So it's understandable why we're skeptical, because again, it's been a rough past 13 years of misery. So I want to give Adams the benefit of the doubt, but until we make the playoffs, it's very hard to do that.
One last thing before we cut off the Sabres segment. There's a big question here to ask about why didn't we add a top 6 forward? There's always that potential to go and get somebody. But the real reason why we didn't, Martin Necas, it was reported on yesterday that he was going to be traded to the Carolina Hurricane from the Hurricanes to the Sabres, but he rejected a contract extension stating that he would not extend in Buffalo, meaning we'd have him for just 1 year. And of course, for a player of his caliber, to have to give up as many assets as you have to give up for 1 year is not worth it. So unfortunately, the Sabres couldn't get it done there. I haven't heard anything on Ehlers offhand, but I still think that might be the main reason why Buffalo didn't target somebody. They did. It's just couldn't get it done with Necas. What are your thoughts on that? Do you agree with Necas to side with Buffalo?
Screw Necas. No. Yes, he doesn't want to come play for my. If he doesn't want to come play for my Sabres, screw him. Even if he may be right, even if I do understand why, screw him. No, I don't know. Screw Necas. But honestly, I don't know if Winnipeg's going to trade Ehlers. There's a lot of reports that they're the front runners to land Necas, so maybe they're trying. It looks like maybe they're not blowing it up yet. They might be buyers, so that might be why Ehlers hasn't been moved yet, which I think is dumb on Winnipeg's part. I just don't think that core is good enough to be a Stanley Cup contender. But if they're going to go all in, I mean, I can't stop them. I'm just a random person. So if they're going to, if they want to go and get Necas and keep Ehlers, then the Sabres can't really do anything about that. But a lot of people are upset that we didn't use that Skinner, or we haven't used that Skinner money on getting a top 6 guy, which is understandable. But the more the offseason passes, the more I feel like it's honestly good that we have that much cap space, because now if we're in the running for the playoffs, we can go and trade for someone and we don't have to give up more assets just so they retain the salary. Think about how many times teams have to go, like all these teams against the cap, and they have to go and give up an extra second or even a first so it can be 50 to 75% retained. We don't have to do that. We can give up less assets and take on the full contract because we have all of that cap space, which if we should be in the playoff hunt this year. And I think this is finally the year where we are buyers, because Adams realizes that if we miss the playoffs, he's probably gone. So I think if we're even sniffing anywhere near playoff contention, I think we're going hard in the buyer's market this year. So I think he realizes that. So he's like, if we can't land Necas, unless someone just kind of falls in our lap, I think he's going to go into the season with that $7 million. And now we don't have to give up as much assets to go and eat salary if we do need to go get our top 6 guy, or even a bottom 6 guy, or a defenseman based on injuries. There's still a season to play. Who knows who performs and all that. That's more so questions when February, March comes around, not August. So only time will tell, I guess, what we end up doing with that money.
Yeah, there's a lot of possibilities to do with that. I'm liking the idea of just keeping it for right now, figuring it out between your option or maybe even extending free agents for next offseason. That's always a thing to look forward to. So just making sure we make the right moves is exactly what Kevyn Adams has been trying to do this offseason. It's going to be exciting for this season for us, but for him, I'm very sure he's getting a little sweaty there because he knows that seat is pretty hot right now, as he hasn't been really living up to the hype that we once thought he could. But getting away from hockey, we're going to talk about some baseball next. MLB trade deadline, a ton of different options here. What are your thoughts on the deadline this year? Who do you think gets dealt and to where? Anything like that for you from that?
First I'll recap, I guess, some of the trades, because there already this has been a little earlier of a deadline. Usually you don't see anything until like today or even tomorrow, like the day before, day off, but there's actually been a good amount of trades. You got Jazz Chisholm coming to my Yankees. I do love that. Randy Arozarena to the Mariners, and the Mariners just added Justin Turner earlier. They're really realizing that with how good their pitching is, they need to add some offense, because their offensive numbers, they're bottom 5 in like every category. So they went and got 2 big bats, and even though Arozarena is not having a great year, they're hoping maybe he can turn it around. And Justin Turner's always been a very reliable DH that bats 270, 280 plus, gets you decent power. So I like those moves they made. The Isaac Paredes to the Cubs, I really like that for the Cubs. A lot of people are like, why are the Cubs 6 games below 500, last in their division, trading for Paredes. Why are they a buyer? Because they're not. It's not for this year. Paredes isn't a free agent for another like 4 years. I think it's like 2029. They have 4 years of control.
Even if
They're
it is
not
for this year, though, they're only a few games back of 500, which is they're only like 6 or 7 games back, and the NL right now has not been it. NL,
Yeah.
the final wild card's right there.
But I mean, yeah, they are close enough. But I'm saying even if they still want to be sellers for their other moves, if they're just like, let's be sellers, Paredes is going to help them out for a while, and he's a very consistent hitter. So I really like that move. Earlier today, there was the big 3-team trade between the Dodgers, White Sox, and Cardinals. I like it for the Cardinals. I really like it for the Cardinals. They had to give up Edman, who's only really been a utility guy. It's not like he was in a full-time starter, and they go and get a starting pitcher and Freddie and Tommy Pham to help out that outfield. I really like it for the Dodgers. They didn't. I think they gave up like their 24th and 29th ranked prospect, and then the big name from the package. I can't remember. I think it's like Michael Vasquez or something like that. But overall, the value for the White Sox was very bad for this. They gave up Garrett Crochet, Tommy Pham, and Eric Fedde, and they just didn't get much in return. I mean, a 24th ranked prospect in a system and a 29th ranked prospect in a system most times do not turn in anything. So at best, they're probably only getting one good big leaguer, and they just gave up 3 good big leaguers. Like, that's just not a way to start a rebuild. Like, I get they're like on pace to be the worst team of all time or one of the worst teams ever, but that doesn't mean you just go and get rid of your good players just to get rid of them. Like, I think it's awful for them. But the Dodgers, they desperately needed some pitching help with all the injuries they've had. Not Crochet. I don't know why I'm saying Crochet. Michael Kopech is what I meant to say. I think he's a great slot him right in as a long reliever. That's what the White Sox have been using him this year, and he's been pretty good to help strengthen that bullpen, because everyone needs bullpen help, especially when it comes to playoff time where starters, if you're allowing 3 runs through 3 innings, you're going to get pulled. Like, you have such a short leash in the playoffs. Bullpen is extremely, extremely valuable when it comes to playoff time. So I think it's a great trade for them. And then Tommy Edman, I think it just adds depth. I think I'm not sure if Mookie Betts is back yet from his injury or not, but either way,
I'm not sure.
Yeah, either way, I think it's just the more play. I mean, it's better to have more depth than not enough, and I just don't think they gave up that much. Tommy Edman's a really good fielder. I think he fits in well, even if he's just their 5th platoon guy. I'm not super up to date on the Dodgers, so I mean, I know they've been really good, but like, I'm not a Dodgers fan, so I don't know exactly what their rotations or what their lineup's going to be. But I know Edman's a very good player, so I really like it for them. Then, I mean, obviously, you got some big names that haven't been dealt yet that are getting talked about. I mean, you got Tariq Skubal, Garrett Crochet, Jack Flaherty, Nestor, Blake Snell, some relievers. You got like Tanner Scott, Kirby Yates, Keith Fairbanks. Then you got some big name hitters like Luis Robert, Brent Rooker, Yandy Diaz, Josh Bell, McMahon, Taylor Ward, Cody Bellinger and I mean, there's a lot more that's going to happen. Those are just some of the big names. For the pitching, I doubt Tariq Skubal gets traded, and if the Tigers do, they're just complete idiots. Unless like the Orioles offer them like Kobe Mayo and Jackson Holiday, like 2 top 15 prospects, one of them being the best prospect. Like, unless it's some like insane package like that, you would just be a complete idiot to pass up. You don't trade away. Like, the Tigers are a young team that's only going to get better, and you have a player like Skubal, who's the best left-handed pitcher, might be the best pitcher in baseball. He's on track to hopefully win his first Cy Young. Like, you don't give him up when it's not like he's like a 35-year-old that just had a renaissance to his career. He's very young also. You got to, at some point, if you're going to get out of being bad, you have to hold on to your really good pieces, and he is one of the most valuable players like there is. So it would just make no sense for them to trade him. I think the White Sox, I think it'd be smart for them to trade Crochet. By the time they're going to be even competitive again, they're going to have to pay him money. So go trade him to the Orioles, who will overpay for him just because they have so many prospects they can afford to. You probably can go and get, I saw a mock trade where they're giving up like their 3rd, 4th, and 5th best prospects. Those are all top 100 guys because their prospect pool is just so deep because they were so bad for so long. So I really think the White Sox should go and trade Crochet. I see The Yankees actually in serious talks to get Jack Flaherty from the Tigers. I think that'd be smart for the Tigers to trade him. They're not competitive this year, and he's a free agent after this year. So it would make a lot of sense for them to trade him. And the Yankees, I would absolutely love that. They're already looking to trade Nestor for infielder or even a reliever. I probably an infielder, my guess, first baseman. So I think you go and get Flaherty, and then you can trade Nestor and go get that first baseman you need. And I think Flaherty, he's got a sub 3 ERA, 11 K through 9. I mean, a lot of his numbers he's been absolutely electric, and especially as of late. So he fits in perfectly as that fourth guy that we're going to have in our playoff rotation, probably because, I mean, Cole's basically a lock. I think Gill's definitely getting in. He's been pitching better late. And then I guess, I mean, if you get Flaherty, it's probably a battle between Rodon and Stroman, unless they want to go 5 deep in the playoffs, which you rarely ever see. But I think if Rodon keeps pitching the way he has lately, I think they give it to him, especially since they gave him so much money. And then I think Stroman and Clark Schmidt probably go to long relievers. Sorry, I just have a lot to talk about with the Yankees. And then there's a couple other guys I really want them to get. I mean, Tampa has shown that they obviously just want to trade away everyone. I mean, they traded away Arozarena, Paredes, and Zach Eflin already. So you might as well continue, trade away, give the good old Yankees Yandy Diaz and Keith Fairbanks, please. I would love to have your closer and your first baseman. We'll give you Ben. I think Ben Rice and Clayton Beeter would do it. Ben Rice, who has shown he has some serious potential. I mean, he's had some really big games. Obviously, that 3 home run game against the Red Sox. He actually has a homer tonight. He had a clutch double on Saturday night that led the Yankees to he's pinch runner came in, but it was his double that led to the game tying run, and then the Yankees won in extras. He had a clutch home run against the Rays, I think before the All-Star break. Didn't end up winning because we blew it, but he's had some really clutch hits. He hasn't been overly consistent. He's only batting like 200, but he's our 12th ranked guy who's like shot up the board. So he's probably more of like a top 10 guy in our system now. And then Clayton Beeter, who's our 13th ranked prospect, a top 5 pitching prospect for the Yankees, and he's major league ready right now. So I think those two you go, and then you go and get Fairbanks, and basically you trade away a first baseman and a reliever, and you go and get a first baseman and a reliever. Maybe you have to throw in another guy or two. I mean, do it. I mean, if you have to throw in more, you have to throw in more. I mean, we're not World Series level, I don't think, right now. I think we're 1 or 2 pieces away. I think we need a closer, and I think we need a first baseman to be able to be a legit World Series threat, and I think that would just fill that perfectly. So I hope Cashman ends up getting make the big moves. Get Flaherty, get Diaz, get Fairbanks. Maybe you trade Nestor to the Rays to go and get Diaz. Like, there's a lot of moves you can do, and I'm really excited to see what Cashman, I really hope he pulls up more, because I love Jazz, but if that's all we get from this deadline, I will be extremely disappointed. What are your thoughts on the trade deadline so far?
I've liked it. I feel like there's a lot of things that are revolving around the White Sox this year. Of course, Crochet and a few others, Kopech, a few guys. Yeah, of course. Luis Robert, Brock Fed. There's a lot of different players here that you can go with. And realistically, I feel like that they're going to control this deadline a lot. And with that being said, we've already seen a couple of the players dealt, like, of course, Kopech and stuff like that. But Robert's right there. I mean, there's a lot of teams that could be interested in a trade like that. The White Sox really have to pick up the pace, though, because right now they're not getting the returns that they should be for these kind of players, especially that 3-team trade, man. I don't get it. But at the end of the day, they know that they're a rebuilding team. They're one of the worst of all time, of course. And with that being said, there's going to be a lot of work to be done. For my Mets, though, specifically being 55 and 50 right now, I don't know how we're here. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't think we've got the pieces that really scream contender, but apparently we do, because we're chilling right above 500. We're in the playoffs right now at the second wild card.
It's the power of Grimace.
Yeah, I guess so. Something, man, because holy 55 and 50. I thought we'd be like 30 wins right now, but 55.
You really thought they were going to be that bad? That's
dude. We don't
That's
really
crazy.
got
That's
much.
like Saber. That's like
We had
Sabres.
some good Sabres.
That's like mid Sabres playoff drought depression there.
Yeah, literally. I
Oh yeah,
know.
we're gonna be absolutely awful.
We're
Like
gonna
there's
have
no
10
hope.
wins. There's 82
Yeah,
games, dude. Yeah, we're gonna win 10.
yeah, and then we only win like 15.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, those are some dark times, but I
Of
mean, I guess
course.
maybe because of that, that just gets you to lower your expectations for the Mets because they are also a depressing team,
Yeah, I mean,
unlike the.
realistically, sitting where we are right now, I'm fine with where we're at. 55-50, so good record. I'm hoping we can keep it up. We're around 6-4 pace right now over the last few weeks, so it's been a win-loss situation for 90% of this. We're coming off a brutal series against the Braves too, which sucks. We got smoked in the final 2 games of that series. Playing the Twins tomorrow night, so I'm
They're
excited
playing
for
them
that.
tonight.
Oh, tonight.
They're playing them. Yeah, the Twins are up 1-0, middle of the second. Buxton had a single. Yeah, Quintana's pitching.
Oh,
Uh, One thing I do
uh,
feel bad for you Mets fans is Kodai Sengai's injury.
dude,
Just coming
I
back.
was so
He was
mad.
on my fantasy team. I picked him up at the beginning of the year, sat him on the IL. I'm like, when he comes back, I know he was a stud last year. He plays one game, had a very good start, and then walking off the mound or like jumped off the mound or whatever, pulled his calf and is done for the year. It's very sad because he's someone who could be around a 3 ERA pitcher. I mean, he could have been their ace. I
Realistically,
honestly am not too familiar with the Mets starting pitching, but I know Sengai's a stud and he could have been their ace. So that is
he's
definitely
been
sad
doing
to see.
great. I was very disappointed in not having Yamamoto, but I was excited for Sengai to come back, and for the way it ended, man, it's just so upsetting. It's like, oh, it almost feels like a Jack Quinn situation with the Sabres, where like as soon as he came back, we were like, okay,
Yeah.
we're excited, he's doing really good, and then all of a sudden Achilles tear, and he's done. It's very tough, but at the end of the day, we're still winning. We're still in a good spot in the playoff race right now. We're ahead of a few other teams. I think the Pirates and Diamondbacks are the next 2 after us, and they have like 4 or 5 less wins. So we're in a pretty good spot. I'm excited to see how the season ends. If we make the playoffs, I'll be absolutely amazed and I'll be extremely excited. But even though we're probably going to get first rounded, but it's okay because at the end of the day, we're doing all right, and I'm excited.
You could be 62-45 like the Yankees, though.
You know what, man? You guys could have been
Yeah.
70 and something because you guys choked half your season.
Hey, they look like they're coming out of it. I mean, Stanton's back tonight. Chisholm's in the lineup. This is the best lineup the Yankees have had probably all year. I mean,
You guys are gonna
obviously
lose
Judge.
tonight.
We're up
Go.
we're up 3-run right now.
There you go.
Judge, Ben Rice, and Jazz just hit all hit homers tonight. It's funny; those are the only 3
geez.
hits the Yankees have. So, but Judge
3
is just
hits and 3 homes. Oh,
Judge is just on another level right now. Like
he has been all year,
did
realistically.
you see Saturday night? No, the Mets actually had the smartest idea on how to deal with Judge. Just don't pitch to him. I think it was game 1. They walked him 4 straight times. They're like, nah, we'll give you first base. Like, I would do that. I'd rather just give him I'd rather have him have first base than him hit a home run on me. So that was the smartest idea. The Red Sox, on the other hand, thought, oh, we're gonna pitch to him and we're just gonna be good enough and get him out. And it backfired on them immensely. It was game 2. He starts the game off with a homer, so it's like, all right, he's feeling good today. And then I think it's like Verdugo's on third, 1 out. Everyone, even the announcers are like, you probably should walk Judge here. You probably should walk him. They decide to pitch to him. Judge hits a single. And then the 8th inning, it's runners on first and second, I think. Yeah, runners on first and second, down by 2. So Judge is the game-winning run. So if he hits a home run or a game-leading, they win it. Well, not over because it's the 8th inning, Red Sox. But
well, yeah,
anyways, if he hits a home run or even a double, like if you just pitch to him, and the way he's been playing, he was 3 for 3 already. I think with a walk too. Like he'd already been up 4 times, gone on base all 4 times, and they decide, oh, we're gonna pitch to him. What he does is he hits one to the green monster, and if Soto wasn't an idiot on the base path, we probably could have scored a lot more runs that inning. But he decided to try and stretch home, even though the third base coach waved him off and he got thrown out easily. But yeah, Judge hit an RBI double there. So Like, it made no sense. And then in the 10th inning, they were smart and they decided to walk him. But it didn't matter because Torres decided he wanted to come up clutch and hit a 2 RBI double. So then the Yankees ended up winning.
Yeah. It's insane. I haven't
Yeah.
watched too many of the baseball games this year, especially since I didn't think my Mets were going to do too great. I've seen a few of them, but not nearly as much as I normally would.
I don't watch a whole lot of the games because I'm usually busy doing something, but I just go on like ESPN. And sometimes if I have free time, I'll watch the game. Like I watch parts of Saturday, but I'll just like go on ESPN. I'll continue look at the score and stuff like that. But I want to give a quick shout out.
They're like 5 minutes long.
Yeah. I want to give a quick shout out though to Austin Wells. He has turned into an absolute unit so far this year. If you look at his numbers, they're actually very close to Adley Rutschman. His WARs is, I think Adley Rutschman is like a 2.5 WAR, and Austin Wells is a 2.4. And Austin Wells has like half the amount of starts as Rutschman. Like Austin Wells defensively, he's been a top 5 pitcher or top 5 catcher with his like framing. He's like in the 93rd percentile or something. Outs above average, he's like 10. And then offensively, he's up to like a 110 WO or OPS plus, WRC plus. Like he is they've been putting him in the cleanup. I mean, now he's at the 5 spot because Stanton's back, but he's been walking a lot. Like his on base, like every game he's getting at least like 1 or 2 walks, and he's getting just a lot of good swings. He is really developing, and it's nice to see because we haven't had a legit catcher since Jorge Posada. That was the last time where we had like a really good catcher where I'm like, all right, we're like, it's just been a revolving door there. We've had a couple of good seasons here or there, but nothing consistent. And so I love to see this development out of him. And that mustache is so fire.
I was like, is he going to mention the mustache? I'll just let him be.
The power of the stash. Yeah, the power of the stash.
Oh, man.
Oh, no.
Well, I think that's it for the MLB. I think, right? All right, so we're going to hop into the Buffalo Bills now. NFL training camp begun a little under a week ago. I think today's day 5 for the Bills for training camp.
I think Wednesday was day 1.
Wednesday. So the Bills right now, we've had a lot of really nice storylines for Buffalo. I've seen the Keon Coleman, Josh Allen connection working very well. Seeing that the rookies are getting some very good action on defense as well as Cole Bishop as a starting safety for one of the practices. So it's exciting to see. Alex, what are your thoughts right now on the biggest storylines for the Buffalo Bills training camp?
I think the biggest storyline is how much the offense has just been absolutely dismantling the defense. And the question is, does that mean more in the offense or more in the defense? And honestly, I was thinking about it. I think it's a little bit of both. I really think the offense this year is going to be absolutely electric. I think addition by subtraction. I really think Diggs leaving allows everyone to play a little more freely because he's not Josh doesn't have to just look at him every time because afraid he's going to get upset if he doesn't throw the ball. He can just go and because the amount of times he just target lock on Diggs or Gabe Davis and it would lead to interceptions. It's like now we don't have the alpha guy that's demanding these targets. Now it's like you can spread it around to all these guys who are unproven that are just trying to make it. Like Keon's a rookie, Kincaid's coming off a second year, Shakir's a third year and is a 5th round pick. Like these guys are just trying to make a name for themselves. They're trying to do whatever they can to go and get to that second paycheck where they can really change their and their family's life. So they're not trying to be like, oh, give me the ball or I'm going to go post cryptic tweets and say random stuff at pressers and yell at my quarterback on the sideline. Like, I'm not going to go play these games. Like, so we don't have to worry about that. Joe Brady doesn't have to train scheme Diggs. Josh doesn't have to try and force it to him. It's just the whole chemistry. And I think the mood of the offense is much better. And I mean, Kincaid, I think, is taking a step that the tight end connection. Like, I think Kincaid has been our number 1 target so far. Like him and Josh Allen have been absolutely electric together. But then when you get to the defensive side of the ball, I think it's a little scary, but I think right now, I think it's more so there was just so much turmoil on the defense that everyone's just trying to get used to playing with each other. I mean, the entire secondary is completely revamped to what it was last year. New defensive coordinator, Milano coming back from injury. There's no Dodson. So Dorian Williams has been playing a lot. There's just so many new faces. I mean, our D tackle 2 is different now with Dwayne Carter, no Leonard Floyd anymore. Like, I mean, our front fours, our starting guys are mostly the same, but like that back end is it's revolving door at safety right now because we're trying to figure out who's the best guy. I mean, even at corner, looks like Rasul's our number 1, but they've been giving Elam a lot of snaps. And I've even seen people were like, when they're doing like their depth chart predictions, they think Elam starts over Benford. I don't know if that's a testament to Benford not looking good, Elam taking the step. I don't know, but they've been giving him a lot of looks. So I think they're just trying a lot of new things on defense because they have so much to work through under a new defensive coordinator. So I think that's partly why they've been getting torched so much. But another thing I want to bring up is Mike Edwards has not been part of training camp at all. He wasn't really there in the spring. If he's just injured the entire time, it's not like we're that tied to him. And if other safeties, like if Damar Hamlin looks good, if Cole Bishop looks good, if these other safeties look good, do you think he get cut? I think I saw Buffalo Fanatics post something about it. It's possible if you're not healthy, the best ability is availability. And if he can't stay healthy and these other guys look like studs in his spot, it doesn't really make sense to keep him around. It would make more sense because it's not like I don't think he's going to be like a special teams guy. He's either a starting safety, maybe he's the third safety, or he's cut. I think if they don't slate him as a top 3 safety, I think they end up cutting him just because I don't see the value in keeping him around if there's no special teams value and he's not a top 3 safety there. So that is going to be interesting to see if he ends up making the team or not.
Yeah, right now with training camp, I've been absolutely amazed by the offense as well. I mean, like you said, not having to force the ball to Stephon Diggs, to be able to just throw the ball freely and know who you can just throw it to whoever you find open is such a big relief for this offense. There's no more dealing with Diggs and his drama. There's no more having to worry about a specific player needing to get the football without being that drama. There's a lot that goes into that, and a lot of people see the on-the-field product, and they're like, oh, well, you traded one of the best receivers in the game, one of the best route runners in the league. And while that is true, he is also one of the most crap talkers in the league, in my opinion. He's definitely top 3 in that category. That's the only top
I don't even
3.
think he's a top receiver anymore.
I'll give
top route runner. He's not a top 10 receiver anymore. He's still a very good route runner. He's still very good in the short intermediate game, but like if you look at I think it's route tree, and it was like I forgot who makes those graphs, but it's like success rate, like how often you beat your guys on like these routes. Diggs was in the red on all vertical routes. Like he lost a step. He was just, Josh I overthrew him a couple of times, and people would blame that on Josh. I think Diggs lost a step, and Josh just wasn't used to it. I think Josh was so used to, like, after a while, you know exactly how far you have to throw it to hit a certain receiver. And I was even saying it during the season. I'm like, I don't know if this is Josh's fault, because like he was missing him by, like, he was overthrowing him, but he was missing him by like a step. So I'm like, I think Diggs just lost a step. I'm like, I mean, yeah, part of it's Josh. You got to realize that and figure it out. And he wasn't really, I mean, I guess in the Chiefs one he was. In the Chiefs game he finally did, just for Diggs to drop it. But there was one against the Chargers. There was one against, I think, the Patriots. There was one against the Dolphins. Basically every game the second half of the year, there was like one deep shot every game where Josh would just miss Diggs. He'd usually overthrow him. And I'm like, I don't know how much of that's on Josh. I think Diggs I think Father Time's getting up there. It's undefeated. I mean, Father Time is undefeated. I think he really is he doesn't have that second burst to get by safeties anymore, or like athletic corners. So I just don't think he's a top 10, even top 15 safety. I think there's a better chance he ends up as the Texans wide receiver 3 than wide receiver 1.
Exactly. And there's a lot to be said with the whole offseason right now. There's been a lot of very difficult changes. And while I do think that the addition of all these new guys on defense is a little bit concerning at first due to the chemistry aspect, but once they get that chemistry, you know what Sean McDermott defense can do. And I'm very confident by the time the season starts, they'll have it figured out. I mean, they still have an entire month and a week or two until the season truly begins. So realistically, that's pretty much it. There's been a lot going on for the Bills, but there's still a little bit more to figure out in the NFL side of things. The 53-man roster is going to happen soon. Preseason games start up in a week and a half. So there's a lot to go into that.
First preseason game's on Thursday, the Hall of Fame game.
Well, that's the Hall of Fame game, but I'm saying,
yeah, I know, but football is football. I mean, I won't be watching it. I'll be at a concert, but football is football.
Yeah, so we'll see how that ends up going. But real quick before we get out of the Bills segment here, breakout player on offense and defense for this upcoming season. What are your thoughts?
See, I'm for offense, I'm gonna go a little bit outside of the box. I know everyone wants to say Kincaid, Coleman, Shakir, one of those three. It's James Cook. It's basically just I'm gonna go with an offensive lineman. I'm gonna go with Osiris Torrance.
Yeah.
I think he's going to prove himself to be a top 10 guard in the NFL this year. I think he's going to be an
Ooh.
absolute stud. I mean, he was the best rookie guard last year. And everyone knew at the time it was a steal of a draft pick. Most mock draft analysts who were doing these mock drafts, they were having him going in the first round. A lot of them I wanted the Bills to take him take him with their first pick. And he fell all the way to, what was it, 54? Like, he fell a lot. It was an absolute steal. And yeah, again, he was the best rookie guard last year. I really think he takes that step. And the offensive line is basically returning all of its starters. So that chemistry he's going to build, especially with Spencer Brown on that right side. I mean, yeah, he's losing Morse, so McGovern's moving over, but McGovern's already on the line. So it's like he's playing next to two guys who have already been in the Bills offensive line and in that system. So I think he helps. I think that really does help with communication, because communication with offensive linemen is extremely underrated, especially with how complex pass rushing has gotten, the amount of stunts, the amount of moves. Like, just look at how good the Ravens defense was this last year, and a lot of it had to do with the amount of stunts they were running. There's just so much communication between all the offensive linemen to make sure every man is accounted for. So being able to have the same guys over and over again, I think really helps. So I think Osiris Torrance develops into a top 10 guard next year. So I'm going to go a little bit outside of the box, and I'm going to go with him. And then on defense, I'm going to go with a pretty common answer. I'm going to go Christian Benford, who honestly you can say broke out last year, but I think this year is when he gets his recognition. I think Bills fans, local media, and people who really paid attention to the NFL knew that Benford was a stud last year, and a lot of his numbers were really, really good. And I think, but your casual fan, every time it's going through secondary rankings, anytime Christian Benford's name gets brought up, they're half the comments are like, "Who's Christian Benford? And then, I mean, they get flamed by people who actually know ball, but it shows he doesn't really have that national recognition yet. So I think this is the year he breaks out. I think with Rasul on the other side being such an aggressive, and ballsy corner, he's the one that'll go for the pick, but he also might allow the big play. I think Benford on the other side,
our defense.
yeah, I think he's a worse version of Trayvon Diggs, which we need in our secondary. We haven't really had a big play guy. We've had even when it was Hyde and Poyer, they were all really good and they didn't allow much over the top. They weren't making a lot of I mean, they get the occasional interception. A lot of them were tipped or just a bad throw. Rasul's the one that's he's gonna jump the route and hopefully he's gonna get a pick or a deflection. He's gonna make a play, but he also might allow a big play, which I can live with, because I think our defense in years past is what's killed us in the playoffs, is how soft we were. I would rather give up, honestly, I'd almost rather give up a 50-yard bomb going for an interception than allow them to get 50 yards in 6 or 7 plays, because one, it wears our defense out more, and two, yeah, it wastes clock, wastes our defense out more, and we're not attempting to make that play, because in the playoffs, one interception, one sack can be the difference between winning or losing. So I like his aggression, and I think that helps Benford, because then he could play a little bit more of the safe, and he can just focus on trying to shut down the other corner that allows Rasul Douglas to play aggressive. I think they can work really well together. So I think Benford develops into an absolute stud this year, a lockdown guy. So I'm excited for his development this year.
Nice. I'm going to go with the same guy in a sense on defense. I really like Christian Benford. I would have picked him, but since you picked him, I'll switch it up a little bit. I'll go Gregory Rousseau. I like the addition of him a few years ago. I really think that he's going to take that final step this year. He started to become an absolute beast in the passing game with the deflections similar to AJ Epinesa on the opposite side. I'd really like to see him take that amazing step forward on the runs this year. I think he struggled a little bit against those mobile quarterbacks. I think with another year under his belt, he's going to fix that game a little bit more, refine his skills. And I really like the idea of him and Epinesa going into the next season as our starters. Von Miller as a rotational guy, I guess, but very good defense.
Pass rush specialist.
Exactly.
That's what Von's going to be. Sorry for cutting in real quick, but that's what I love about our defensive ends. I think Epinesa and Rousseau work really well together as those early down guys, the run defenders, the stop the short passes because of how big their arms are. That's where and then you bring in Von Miller, and then whoever wins that other defensive end, maybe the rookie, maybe Tuhill, maybe Swoot, like a lot of guys. And those are our third down pass rush. We need a sack, bring in our two best guys.
Yep. I like that a lot on the defensive line. And then back to the offensive side here. I'm going to go with Khalil Shakir. That playoff game against Pittsburgh really sold me. I mean, he's shown what he did against Kansas City as well. He showed that he could shoulder the load in the fourth quarter. He carried. And if it wasn't for a little bit of a sad play in my heart, Allen just barely not being able to step up one little bit longer, he would have had a touchdown pass that could have potentially been the game-winning touchdown. So it's a very good sign for him in the developmental process. I think he ends up becoming that Gabe Davis-like role this year. I think that the main target of the offense is going to be Kincaid, but I think that Shakir is going to take that Gabe Davis role and he's going to run with it like Davis did a few years ago. I think he's going to prove himself to the world in this season, and he's going to show why Josh Allen was right in keeping him and all these other guys around and spreading the ball out the way he's always wanted to.
I love it. I've always been a big Shakir guy. I remember when we drafted him, all the draft experts were like, this is the best pick of the 5th round. This is an absolute steal. And then we weren't able to see him too much. I think it was that Pittsburgh game, though, the regular season one where our offense was just absolutely clicking. Josh could have set like the passing yards record if it was a close game because he had like 400 through like 3 quarters or something. He was absolutely insane.
Yeah.
But I think it was I think he it was like a 30-yard play where Shakir went over the dude's head and mossed him.
Yep.
I'm like, yep, this dude's a star. This dude's 5'10" and he's mossing these like behemoth 6'4" linebackers. I'm like, yep, exactly. This guy is a beast. Give him the ball more.
The one play that really made me fall in love with him was this year when we played the Jets the second time. The offense was starting off the game really slow, and he cooked Sauce Gardner on that deep route and gets the 75-yard touchdown. And I'm just like, oh my God, he did that to us, like to Ahmad Gardner. And the fact is like,
he saw
like Diggs couldn't even do it, and you got Shakir out there making it look amazing. And that's just plays like that really understand a player better. And right there, that's one that I think we're going to see a few times this year. I'm excited for his development with the team as well.
One quick tidbit on the offense back to the training camp that now you're saying that it just kind of reminded me is that we're going to be moving all of our receivers around. Like Joe Brady said, like Coleman, Samuel, and Shakir, they're going to be playing all 3 positions. They're going to be because Coleman's been getting some work in the slot, and I kind of like him as that power slot role. So I mean, he can be that. He can get those like middle of the field targets, and he can eat those hits from the linebackers. I mean, he's not the greatest route runner, but put him off the line of scrimmage, like put him against a linebacker. He can cook a linebacker. Yeah, maybe he's not cooking as many corners like running routes, but he can cook some linebackers. So I kind of like that, and it just keeps the defense open. I mean, they're never going to know what's going to hit him because it's not like in years past where it's like Diggs is Y, Diggs is X, Gabe Davis is Y, and rotate the slot. It's like sometimes Coleman's going to be the X, sometimes Shakir's going to be the X, sometimes Samuel's going to be the X. Samuel's going to be in the backfield sometime. We're going to be in 12 personnel with Knox and Kincaid.
So scary.
Like it's so versatile. MVS will hit the field sometimes. Matt Collins will hit the field sometimes. Maybe we're bringing him in as a run blocker. Maybe we're bringing him in because he's a deep threat. Maybe Claypool's like there's so many different things that we didn't have in years past. It's like everyone knew exactly what we were going to do. We're going to just pass, and then occasionally run. Like we're going to try and run a little bit. We're going to do a lot of throwing the ball, and teams set up for that. They put the 2 high safety. They're prepared. Yep. They know like they're going to put 7 back in coverage. They're going to have a light box, and that's what led to a lot of Josh's picks. It's just no one getting open, especially last year. It's like Diggs finally lost that step. Now, without him, Gabe Davis never took that step. Now we don't really have many guys that can get open when they're ready for us, when they know exactly where we're going to hit. And Josh is just it's like, I got to do something. So he just tries to force something. interception.
Interception.
Yes, you've got to blame Josh because either way you shouldn't be doing it, but still, like there's a lot of reason behind it. This year, I think there's so many different things that Joe Brady's going to be able to cook up because of how versatile this receiving room is. I'm extremely excited for this season. I honestly, of the Josh Allen area, this is the second most excited I've been for a season. Hopefully, it doesn't end up like 2022, which was the most excited I was. And then that season ended poorly. Hopefully the season ends a little bit better than that. But I'm extremely excited just because there's so much unknown that I really think we're going to shock the world.
Yeah, it's exciting to see. One thing I'm going to mention here about that is with the versatility, a team that did that a couple years ago in the past, the Kansas City Chiefs, and they ended up winning the Super Bowl doing that philosophy. So it is interesting to see how that works. Of course, they weren't the highest rated offense going into that year. The Tony addition really helped. And they kind of used Tony in a similar role. We're going to use Samuel. They moved around these players. MVS was on that team, so they had the deep threat and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's a lot to think about with that. So it's interesting. But moving into our final thing real quick, pull out the list. It's time. 32 through 1 team rankings.
All right. So we're going to do it in 4 segments instead of trying to remember all 32 at once. So we're going to start out with 1 through 8. This is what I have. I have Kansas City at 1, just coming off the Super Bowl win. The Niners at 2, who were just in the Super Bowl. You got the Ravens at 3, Lions at 4, Bills at 5, Texans at 6, Eagles at 7, Bengals at 8. What do you have?
My top 8. Kansas City goes at 1, reigning Super Bowl champs. It's obvious. I think the Baltimore Ravens, if it wasn't for a fumble in the end zone, played an absolutely amazing game against them. So they're number 2. Lions are at 3. I think they take that next step this year out of them and the Texans. I was debating which one would take that step. I think it's the Lions out of those two. More confident in Jared Goff than CJ Stroud, who's only done it once. San Francisco goes at 4, and then Buffalo at 5. I think the 49ers are an amazing team, don't get me wrong, but I feel like them and the Lions and the Eagles are all going to be in that contention for the first overall pick. I think the Lions also play.
You mean the first overall seed? Not the first overall pick.
First seed. Oh, Jesus. But 5, the Bills. Of course, my Buffalo Bills. I feel like we do amazing again this year, like we were just talking about. I think that offense is so versatile. They're going to be able to get us a lot of wins. Number 6, I have the Houston Texans. 7, the Bengals, and 8, the Eagles. I think Bengals, Eagles are interchangeable, but I have Joey Burrow over Jalen Hurts any day. And so because of that, I put them over them. And then Houston, I still think they end up being a very good team. I feel like they're going to win the division. They're going to make a wild card spot at least. I'm thinking they probably get the 3 or maybe the 4. It really depends. It's interchangeable with those two.
Yeah.
It's them and the Bills, I think, for 3 and 4. But I like that.
So we actually have our top 8 is the exact same. Our number 1's the same. Our number 1, our number 5, and number 6 are the exact same. But one thing I got to ask you is, how are the Niners not at 2? I thought that, for me, that was just easy because it's like the Chiefs are just in the Super Bowl and they didn't really lose anyone, well, besides Snead, but they have Mahomes, so whatever. The Niners didn't lose anyone, and they're bringing back their entire team, and then they're adding more weapons to the offense. I understand the whole Brandon Ayuk situation. I don't think they end up trading him right now, but I mean, love Brock Purdy or not, he's a capable enough quarterback for that offense. I mean, you have McCaffrey, you have Kittle, and then that receiving core, you have 3 absolute studs. Because you know how much I love, why can't I even think of his name? The guy they took with the first pick. I'm blanking on his name. He literally went to my favorite school. What?
Is it Bryce?
No, the wide receiver. No, the wide receiver the Niners just took, pick 31.
Oh, Ricky Pearsall.
Yeah, I was blanking on his name. You know how much I love Pearsall. Even on draft night, I said he's a sneaky guy to go round 1. I think he's an absolute stud. He's the perfect slot guy they need. So then you have Ayuk at the X, Samuel at the Y, that they move around and do different things. So I really like that receiving core. I think they were kind of missing that third guy, and now they have him. So you have 5 legitimate weapons in that passing game. I mean, and then you still obviously have Trent Williams. They went bolster that offensive line some that was pretty bad outside of Trent Williams, and then that defense is bringing back everyone, which Dre Greenlaw will be joining that. He got injured last year. I think that the drop off from like Greenlaw to whoever they were putting out besides Greenlaw was just a huge drop off. I think Greenlaw's like
Exactly.
his backup was not that good. That him getting injured really hit that defense. So I really like him coming back. I really like that defense. I just think they're just too star powered. And if you're going to compare them to the Lions, I think Goff and Purdy are basically one of the same. So it's like I think that's a wash, and I think the Niners roster is just better than the Lions.
That I can agree with. Not sure how the ranking got the Lions over the Niners. I think that it's still very close between those two teams. It's really back and forth. The reason I have one team over both of them, though, is the Baltimore Ravens, and that's because that defense is absolutely insane. In my opinion, that's a wash with the 49ers defense. They're the two best in the league. I think it's interchangeable. It's really just one thing that really scares me for the 49ers is that offense, and that's because the O-line's lost a step without Mike McGlinchey after he left for Denver last year. You could definitely see the gaps not being closed properly, leaving too many spots for McCaffrey to have 2 or 3 different options, and he has to choose one, unfortunately the wrong one sometimes. And when you got things like that, and then Deebo Samuel, who I think is going to lose a step this year, it's something I predicted this entire offseason. Feel like he's similar to the Diggs, where his wear and tear on his body right now is just losing a step. I think they're becoming more of a predictable offense as well. I feel like they have to run the ball more often. And the thing is, with Brock Purdy, he's got amazing games, but he's a lot like Matt Stafford to me, where he can throw picks at the most inconvenient times, and you'll lose an entire game because he doesn't get the job done. And basically what I'm saying is I think Brock Purdy's going to single-handedly lose them some of these close games. They got some tough teams on their schedule. They got the Bills. Bills defense is normally very good. They've got some other great teams. The Chiefs are going to be on there. There's a lot of stuff they have to plan for. And I feel like Brock Purdy, he hasn't had that kind of level of experience in the big games, similar to CJ Stroud, why they fall a little bit for me, because they just haven't had the longevity that I want to see in that kind of game-changing department. Like, there's a minute left in the fourth quarter. We're on our own 32-yard line with 2 timeouts. Can we go get the touchdown to tie it or take the lead? And it's like 90% of the time with Brock Purdy trotting out of the field, I'm like, the other team probably has this, unless you're playing the Panthers or like the Broncos or someone terrible.
I mean, you do got to give him credit, though. He did lead some comeback wins against the Lions and the Packers last year in the playoffs, so he was able to do it a couple of times.
I'm not going to lie to you that that Packers comeback was because of Christian McCaffrey. They ran the ball 2 times out of every 3 on those first downs to get that touchdown. Yeah. McCaffrey ran in the touchdown to give them the lead, and they wouldn't have even had that chance if the kicker, Anders Carlson, would have just made the field goal. And then on top of that, the Lions won. I don't attribute anything like that to the 49ers. I attribute that all to Dan Campbell's nutsack, because motherfucker chose to do that.
Hey, the thing is, though, how is he supposed to know his idiot receiver can't catch an easy drag route?
That's still, though, 3 in a row. If you fail the first time,
it's
or
me on Madden.
Third time, you have to stop.
That's
an addiction at that point. It's an addiction at that point, man. They say insanity is doing something over and over again, and that is pure insanity going for it when you're up in the NFC Championship game. You're going to the Super Bowl. Just don't get too ballsy. And what does he do? I don't care. And does it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I understand.
I don't attribute to Purdy. The Super Bowl loss, in my opinion, was on Brock Purdy. Christian McCaffrey clearly was not stepping up in the first quarter. You had to have Purdy come in and make the plays, and Purdy just couldn't do it. After the offense became one-dimensional, they had to start throwing the ball because McCaffrey wasn't finding holes, wasn't getting the running lanes that he's used to. They had to come out of their comfort zone and throw the ball more, and Brock Purdy just couldn't do it at a high level, hence why they only had like 6 points at halftime. They just couldn't get anything together, and I'm not even kidding with you, man, if they would have just had a little bit better of a first half, if they would have just had one more touchdown, they would have won that game. And in my opinion, that comes a lot down to the quarterback, who was messing up on most of these routes when he just looked flustered the whole game. He looked like Mahomes did in that Buccaneers Super Bowl. And it was just very sad to watch because I wanted the Niners to win, but at the end of the day, he couldn't step up when it mattered most.
Yeah, I guess my reason why I have the Niners ahead of the Ravens, I think the Niners defense will be better because I think the Ravens defense
I
takes a
think
little
they're
bit of a
very
step back.
close.
I think the Ravens defense takes some of a step back though. I think
Ooh.
I contribute the number one reason why their defense was so good last year. I mean, there was many reasons. They have a lot of good players on that defense. I think the number one reason was because of Mike McDonald. I truly do. I think
Yeah, the
his
coach.
his defense his like his stunts. Like I was talking about it earlier, like the way he was able to, like, I remember just watching these games and like the announcers would go over it. Like the way he would move these guys around, it was almost like a cheat code because almost every third down he was getting a free guy at the quarterback. It was sending
Yep.
4 guys and getting a free guy at the quarterback almost every third down. It's like I don't understand how he's able to do it. I mean, that's another reason I'll get into why I'm kind of high in the Chargers this year because McDonald was a Jim Harbaugh disciple. It's his scheme that kind of he implemented. And yeah, and now that McDonald left, not only did he leave, but they lost some of their guys up front, like Clowney, who had a comeback year. They lost Pat Queen to a division rival. Marlon Humphrey kind of lost a step. Who's really going to be that number one corner? I think they had a really good draft. I think TJ Tampa and Nate Higgins can be really good corners, but they're very raw. So I don't think this year, I think their secondary might be weak. I mean, yeah, Kyle Hamilton, Roquan Smith, Justin Madubuike, all 3 of those guys, absolute beasts. I mean, there's a lot they can do with. I mean, Kyle Hamilton's like a Swiss Army knife with how much he can do. He's a stud. So, I mean, they have some players still. I think they're still going to be a really good defense, but I think their defense takes a little bit of a step back this year. And when it comes playoff time, I honestly trust Brock Purdy more than I trust Lamar Jackson in a playoff game. Lamar Jackson has been statistically awful in the playoff games. And then you use the excuse, oh, he doesn't have this or oh, he doesn't have that. Against the Chiefs, he had Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, and Zay Flowers and still threw 3 picks. He scored 10 points against the Chiefs. The game after, Josh Allen dropped 24, and if it wasn't for Stephon Diggs' hands, would have been 31, or if his left tackle's ability to block just a little bit longer, he would have dropped 31 on the Chiefs' head. Like, and then they followed up with MVP Lamar dropping a stinker of 10, throwing it into triple coverage to Isaiah Likely. Blame the game plan all you want. The game plan didn't throw it into triple coverage in the end zone. Lamar Jackson did that. Like, he's bad in the playoffs. So at the end of the day, that's the reason why I have the Niners ahead of the Ravens. But I mean, I guess besides that, we have very, very similar lists. I mean,
the Bengals and Eagles are at 7 and 8, and they flip. Really.
I had it flipped. I mean, I get the Burrow over Jalen Hurts. I completely agree with that. I just think
the Eagles are better roster.
I think the Eagles defense or the Eagles roster is so much better. And with how bad they were at the end of last year was because of the coordinators. I think Kellen Moore is a very underrated offensive coordinator that every system puts up a lot of points. So I think you adding Saquon a whole new dimension. I mean, you lose Jason Kelce, but they already had his backup waiting, who I think he's not no Jason Kelce, but I still think he's going to be pretty good. And just the amount of weapons they have on that offense, I think it's just going to be so electric. I think Jalen Hurts has a better year next year. I think that defense really can't get worse than it was at the second half of last year. I think Jordan Davis takes a step into becoming a stud. I really like the draft they had, getting Cooper DeJean and they got DeJean in the second. Who was their first pick? It was another corner. The dude out of Toledo.
Quinyon Mitchell.
Yeah, or did he go to the Lions? Why am I'm stumping on some names?
Terrion Arnold went to the Lions.
Yes. Okay. So yeah, they got Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, who were. I mean, Cooper DeJean's either going to be a slot corner. Yeah, he's going to be either a slot corner or safety. Either way, he's going to be a playmaker. And Quinyon Mitchell can play next to Darius Slay. I mean, that 1-2 punch is going to be really nice at corner. They completely revamped that secondary. They got absolutely torched last year. And that D-line, I think Brandon Graham, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, I think just the dude from the Jets they just traded for. I don't know why I'm stumping on so many names. Bryce Huff. Like, I think that D-line is going to be very good next year. The secondary is going to be revamped. Linebackers are still questionable, but I think even with an average defense with how electric that offense is going to be, I don't think the Bengals defense is going to be that good either. So that's why I give the edge. But let's go to 9 through 16. I have the Rams at 9, the Jets at 10, the Packers at 11, the Cowboys at 12, the Bears at 13, the Browns at 14, the Colts at 15, the Dolphins at 16. The Dolphins at 16. And what's yours?
Well, I got the Packers at 9, Falcons at 10, Jets at 11, 12 is Dallas, 13 is the Rams, 14 Tampa, 15 Miami, 16 Cleveland, and 17. Nope.
Yeah, I did think that. Wow, you are really high in the Falcons. I want to. Actually,
So
I mean,
the reason why I have the Falcons so high is that defense last year, I think, takes another step forward. They only got better in the offseason. Jesse Bates is one of the best safeties in the game, no argument there. And he's just been absolutely amazing. Grady Jarrett took a step back last year. I can't imagine him having as little of an impact as he did last year. I feel like he at least gets a little bit more production. And even if he gets a little bit more production, the Falcons defense will just be that much better. So another thing for them, I really like the Ohoro draft pick in the second round. Unfortunately, they didn't take Johnny Newton like I hoped they would. I think they really fumbled the draft in a sense, but they still didn't do all that bad. Braylon Trice, I like the rookie out of Washington. He could potentially start on the opposite side there as well. If not, at least get serviceable minutes like Epinesa did in his rookie year. And so I feel like the Falcons defense takes that step. And then as for the offense, Kyle Pitts has been the only one really disappointing. Him and Bijan are going to form a nice duo there. Drake London's another player you can build off of. They signed Darnell Mooney as well. So I really like that addition for a deep play threat, like the play action that they would run with Jordan Addison. So realistically, seeing Kirk Cousins in a different uniform is a little bit weird to see, but I think that he's going to play very well in year one. I don't think it's going to be like a Derek Carr with the Saints thing. I feel like this one's actually going to work out, and I really like the odds of it. They play in a pretty weak division, so I feel like they just get a higher seed based off that as well. And they're right there with the better teams in the league. I feel like Rodgers and the Jets are going to be in a similar spot. Strong defense, decent offense of playmakers, and you have to find a way to get the most out of the quarterback who's a little bit older, but a very good quarterback nonetheless.
Yeah, I guess my thing is just Kirk Cousins. I like Kirk O'Chains. I mean, the memes. He's a great guy. I mean, consistency. I mean, I've always really liked him, but he's never. What's the most wins he's ever gotten in a season? 10?
Yeah.
I don't think he's ever gotten to 11. I mean, he's always consistently decent, but he never wins the big games. And I don't really trust him too much in the fourth quarter. Like, obviously, I don't know how many Monday night games the Falcons have, but those are all going to be losses. Like, he's not good in prime time. Like, when the lights shine the brightest, he always shrinks. And I understand weak division, and I still think they win the division. I'm just very low on the NFC South as a whole. But I just think 10, you never see, what is he coming off an Achilles injury also, 30, 36, 37. I just think that's a little premature to put him that high.
Fair.
I mean, I guess I'll give a sneak peek, but I have them at 17. I have them a lot lower than you did. I'm curious to wonder why you have the Rams so low at 13.
Again, with the Matthew Stafford thing, man, I think that he single-handedly loses them games sometimes. I feel like they get into those high score. No, not in a bad way. What I'm saying is if they play like the 49ers, I'm not expecting him to be able to slice and dice the 49ers defense. I feel like that's a very big thing for me here is where the division they play in. I feel like even the Seahawks normally give them some hell realistically a lot of the time, and the Cardinals are getting better and better each year. So there's always that. I feel like that defense is really young and the chemistry's low right now. So they're going to have to build it back up, especially losing Aaron Donald. That really hurts. So we're going to see what they can do on the defensive side of the ball. I think they're serviceable, but I think 90% of their games are going to come down to shootouts. And I feel like if I have to be that kind of person and they go into a shootout, then I feel like Matthew Stafford is more likely to make a mistake most times than the other elite quarterbacks of the league, like Patrick Mahomes or like a Lamar. And because we're in the regular season is what we're talking about right now. I feel like in the playoffs, they're a very sneaky, dangerous team if they make it. And so it's something that you really got to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I have them as dark horse Super Bowl threat. I think Stafford. I think I did my QB ranking like a month ago. I think I had him at like 6 or 7. I am extremely high in Matthew Stafford. I think he's an
Ooh,
absolute baller. Yeah,
top seven.
I 2 years ago he was injured, like that really bad year they had. He had the elbow problems, didn't even finish out the year. He was dealing with this, that, and the other thing. His first year in the Rams, he led them to the Super Bowl. They won a Super Bowl. Like, I mean, they gave up Goff and 2 firsts just to get him. That shows how valuable he's. And then last year with Cooper, the offensive line being still not very good, not great value at running back until the running back came in and decided to be a stud. But Cooper Kupp gets injured, and you're looking at that receiver core. It's like, who's their best receiver? Van Jefferson, Tutu Atwell. They have a 5th-round receiver, Puka, and Stafford leads Puka into the greatest rookie receiving season ever. Like, I mean, and then
Yeah,
if you look at it, Kupp had one of the greatest receiving seasons ever under Stafford. Megatron, I mean, this long time ago, had one of the greatest receiving seasons ever under Stafford. Like, I think he is an absolute gunslinger. I think he's fully healthy. I think coming after last year, the way he was able to lead that, everyone thought, oh, the Rams are going to be really bad again. Even I thought they were. I mean, I thought they were going to be a little bit. I thought they're going to be like 8, 9, but I didn't expect them to make the playoffs. I expect that
yeah.
defense to be really bad and that offense to be all right. The defense was all right, and then the offense was really good. In the games that they had, they were actually healthy. I mean, Kyron Williams was dealt with injuries. Puka dealt with injuries. Cooper Kupp dealt with injuries. The offensive line was very inexperienced, and he still led them to a playoff spot and gave the Lions all he could. He had a very good game against the Lions. They just couldn't run the ball because, again, that very young and experienced offensive line just got dominated by Detroit's D-line. I mean, Kyron Williams couldn't do anything. And I think Stafford had like 350 yards, went into Detroit, and they lost by a point. Like, very, 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 very close to them winning that game. And then who knows what happens from there. I mean, the Lions were that close to the Super Bowl, and the Rams were that close from beating them. And I just think that offense, I think Puka takes a step. Kupp's healthy. I heard a lot of reports from training camp that Kupp is the best player in the field. That offensive line is getting better. They have a lot of young guys that I think take the step. The defense losing Aaron Donald absolutely stings. I don't know how they're going to be able to recover from that. They lose Aaron Donald and Raheem Morris. So I'm a little scared for that. But they did have 2 absolute studs that they found in the draft last year, in Kobe Turner and I think the other one was like Kobe Bryant. I think it was Kobe Bryant. Like, I think they had like 2
Kobe
stud D
Durant.
line. Like, yeah, Kobe Durant, not Bryant. That's the Seahawks corner I'm thinking of. But yeah, Kobe Durant and Kobe Turner were absolute studs last year. And then they go and add who I think was one of the best players in the draft, and they get him at 18. I think he fits in perfectly to replace Aaron Donald. And why am I stumping on his name? Oh, yeah, it was Jared Verse, right?
Raheem
No,
Morris.
no, it was Brian.
Oh, Jared Verse.
Brian Verse. What? No,
It's
was it
Jared Verse.
Verse? Yeah. Why? I don't know why I cannot remember this draft, even though
Ryan Burns is the Panthers guy who got traded to the
No,
Giants.
Brian. No, I said Byron Murphy.
Oh, Byron Murphy. Oh no, not him. He ended up going to Chicago.
No, he definitely didn't go to the Chicago. I'm gonna
Byron
Google this
Murphy?
real quick. Oh, it was Jared Verse. I don't know. And then Braden Fisk. That's okay. Yeah. So they got both of them. I think that D line can be very good next year. I mean, you got Braden Fisk, Jared Verse, Kobe Turner. I mean, I think that D line is going to be very good. I mean, Sean McVay is always really good at finding coaching. So I think that defense stays very, very good next year, or not. I think they are at least able to stay average next year, even though the loss of Aaron Donald's going to hurt. And I think the offense is going to be top 5, top 10. I mean, McVay is, I think, the best play caller in football. I mean, you can say Shanahan, but I think I give it to McVay. I think he's an absolute genius. And then you have who I think is a top 7 quarterback with the best play caller in football, and then some very good skill position with Kupp, Puka, and Kyron Williams. I expect very big things out of the Rams. So that's why I have them as high as I did. I think I was just being fair by 9. Just because the Eagles and Bengals, I think, have proven a little more of the last 2, have done more of the last 2 years. That's why I had them ahead of them. But I think it's really close. I mean, I get the NFC West is tough, but I just I just really like the Rams, I guess.
Oh yeah. Well, how about we go to 17 through 24?
I have the Falcons at 17, the Jags at 18, the Bucks at 19, the Chargers at 20, the Steelers at 21, and then the Seahawks at 22, the Raiders at 23, and then the Cardinals at 24. I think it's very hard to rank. I think there's a couple of clear bottom teams, but I think this middle range, there's so many teams you could throw in there. I'm a little bit lower on the Bucks than you were. I know you had the Bucks high. I just think that losing Dave Canales, I think, is really going to hurt them. I mean, I'm not saying he's the only reason Baker like had this like
Broke out.
renaissance, but I mean, I think he had a big part of it. I mean, he did the same thing to Geno, and then he just did it to Baker, and I think he's going to do it to Bryce Young too. I'm a little higher on the Panthers than most people, just because I really think Dave Canales is an absolute stud of a play caller. But I just we already talked about the Falcons, the Jaguars. They're so tough to rank because I think T Law is a stud, and I think they did a lot to try and revamp this team in the offseason. And I mean, they gave T Law the contract. A lot of people are saying, does he deserve it? I think he shows that he does deserve it. I think he just has never really had an extremely good receiving core, and that offensive line was really bad last year. I think they went to try and fix that. And then I just think the receiving core last year just had a lot of the same people, wasn't very versatile, a lot of big names, but just wasn't versatile. And I think allowing Calvin Ridley to walk, they added Gabe Davis. I mean, I think they overpaid, but Brian Thomas Jr., they have a couple big bodies, but then they also have a player like Christian Kirk, who's the small body. And they wanted to go and get some people that had hands. And I mean, not Gabe Davis, but I think Brian Thomas is known for having good hands because he's a big guy for T-Law to throw it up to, which he hasn't been able to. And besides Evan Ingram, who obviously is not known for his hands. So I think they could be very good. But I think the AFC South is extremely underrated. I mean, we had the Texans at 6. I had the Colts at 15. I mean, you know how much I love AR-15. I think he's an absolute stud. I think he takes a step. Steichen, if I think you say McVay and Shanahan are the top 2 play callers in the league, I think Steichen's there at 3. I mean, look at what he did to Jalen Hurts and then the drop off when he left. And then Anthony Richardson last year as a rookie was looking very promising through a couple of games before he got injured. I think Steichen with like mobile quarterbacks like that, big mobile quarterbacks who can chuck it down the field and run it. I think he's just an absolute genius in drawing up those plays. And I think that offense is just getting better. I mean, Jonathan Taylor's a stud. The O-line's very good. That receiving core, Pittman's good. I think Adonai Mitchell is a good pick. Josh Downs is good. I think that defense gets better because there's the Colts they took Latu, right? Yeah, they took Latu. They took who I think the best defensive player in the draft was. They got him at 16. I mean, their secondary I think is going to be a little weak, but I mean that D-line with Latu and DeForest Buckner, Quiddy Pay, I think their D-line is going to be really good. I just think the AFC South is going to be – honestly, I think it's probably the second – you can make an argument it being the second best division in the AFC. I mean, obviously the AFC North is clearly one, but I think the AFC West is the weakest. But I think that the AFC – you can make an argument that the AFC South is going to be better than the AFC East. I am not sure, but I think if AR takes that step – I think they're a little bit younger, so there's a lot of, and then I think the Titans are going to be competitive with how much they did to try and get around, how much money they spent out to try and get Will Levis a lot of targets and to improve that offensive line. So he showed a lot of flashlight here. He could take a step. Like, I think that division's extremely competitive. So that's why I had the Jaguars all the way down at 18. I obviously talked about the Bucks at 19. The Chargers, they're hard to rank. I think that defense is going to be much improved. Justin Herbert, I think, is the 5th best quarterback in football, but he just does not have a lot of weapons. I think the offensive line is going to be very good, and they're going to want their run game could be good, but while I do think they're in the right steps of rebuilding that receiver room, I think Ladd McConkey is a good pick. I mean, they might have the worst receiving core in the league, probably second worst behind the Patriots.
Yeah, Patriots are right there too.
I think. The Steelers, I just think Russell Wilson and Justin Fields just aren't that good to be able to be competitive in that division. I think they're both overrated. And that defense is going to be really good, but I just don't think it makes up for that bad quarterback play. The Raiders, I think honestly, it's tough to. The Raiders are similar to the Steelers. I just think AOC's and Gardner are a little worse than Justin Fields and Russ, because I think that defense is going to be nuts with Max Crosby and Christian Wilkins. They have some good linebackers. They have a good safety duo. Their boundary corners are weak, but obviously Antonio Pierce, a very good defensive coach. And the Cardinals at 24, I think Kyler and I think Marv, his rookie year, is going to be the best wide receiver Kyler's ever played with. I think he's going to have any better. I think it's going to be a better year than any year D-Hop had. Like, I think they're building it in the right direction. I just think not yet. They're still a little too young and raw to be competitive, but I think they're going to be much better than they were last year.
Yeah. My number 17 is the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm just never counting out a team with Mike Tomlin, man. It's life. It's literally, it's just death taxes in the Steelers finishing with a winning record at this point, man.
Yeah,
It's so hard to bet against Mike Tomlin. I understand those three teams in the division that may end up being better than them overall, but I feel like still, even with that, I feel like they steal a game or two in that division. I feel like there's just a lot of turmoil in that division. There's a lot of like anything can happen, where I think the Browns, in my opinion, are probably the worst due to their quarterback situation, but they could definitely beat the Steelers or the Ravens or even the Bengals on any given day, in my opinion. And it's just that close in that division. Number 18, I have the Jags as well. Very tough to rank. Like you said, I think that there's a lot that can go right, but I have to see Trevor Lawrence do it before I finally give him that confidence. If Trevor Lawrence would have been a little bit better last season, I probably would have put him top 15 here, but he's going to sit at 18 for right now because of the Jaguars being there. I'm going to go Chicago at number 19. I think Caleb Williams is going to be pretty good. Don't get me wrong. It's just that defense right now. I'm a little nervous. Matt Eberflus, I understand Matt Eberflus is a very good defensive-minded head coach, but there's a lot that he has to do to really emerge onto the scene, in my opinion. I think the defense does take a step forward. I'm just nervous. They also play with the Packers and the Lions in the division, so that'll be very difficult as well. As you know, the Packers own the Bears. No.
Yeah, but the Bears defense, the second half last year when they added Montez Sweat, was top 10. So I think they already did take the step. I guess that's just, you don't think they've taken the step, and I think they have, and I think that's the difference in why you have them at 19 and I have them at 13, but continue.
Yeah, it's not too big of a difference. I feel like these teams right here in the middle are very interchangeable. There's a lot of teams that are just so close. Like Dolphins and Bears, there's not much of a gap between them for me personally. Number 20, I have the Indianapolis Colts. I am high on Anthony Richardson. Don't get me wrong. It's just I'm a little nervous how much an impact Laiatu Latu makes in his rookie year with all the issues he's been dealing with. If he does, I feel like they can be a very good team on defense. That D-line would be absolutely insane. Kwity Paye can take that next step. They're just so good. The secondary really does concern me still. Nick Cross being the number one safety there with Julian Blackmon is definitely not exciting for Colts fans. And then only really Kenny Moore after the Rock Ya-Sin trade, as Julius Brents looks to make it a breakout campaign for his team. I do like the offensive side of the game. I think they need a tight end. If they could get Delp in the draft next year, I really like that already. I think that'd be sick. But right now, putting them at 20, I think that's pretty safe considering we haven't seen Richardson play that full 16, 17 games that you want to see from a quarterback. And then 21, Las Vegas. I'm not inspired by the Christian Wilkins move. It's concerning for me, and I see your shock right here. But if you look at his stats, man, since year one until the extension kicked in, he's only had 1 year where he's truly been a decent pass rusher / game changer on the run game, and that was last season. He has to prove to me that he can do it long term versus doing it once as a breakout. Same with Trey Hendrickson a few years back. Very similar vibe with that, as it looks pretty good with Hendrickson.
Hendrickson did break out, though. Yeah, Hendrickson did break out at least.
We'll see what Wilkins does, but for right now,
I just think playing next to Crosby is gonna. I mean, who are you gonna double, Wilkins or Crosby? You're probably gonna double Crosby, so Wilkins is gonna get a lot more one-on-one than he did, in Miami. But continue.
Yeah, I had to plug my computer in real quick. My fault.
You're good.
Anyway, number 22, the Washington Commanders. I do like Jayden Daniels. I do, but man, that defense, I'm not convinced that they're going to be insanely good. I feel like they're going to struggle a lot out of the gate, and it's going to take a lot for them to really get that next step. Next up, I have the Chargers at 23 and then the Vikings at 24. I really think that the Chargers are going to be a very competitive team. I just feel like they're a couple game changers on the offense away from being that top team again. And I feel like they take this season to, get used to the Jim Harbaugh, era and, work through it. And then next year they come back better than ever. Again, Justin Herbert's one of my favorite quarterbacks in the league, definitely probably 5th or 6th in the rankings for me. He's a very good quarterback, and I'm excited to see what he does in this limited role. If he can excel so much, then the offense can become better throughout the year. And then 24, the last team here, Minnesota. I think the Vikings are a very good team. They're competitive, but it's going to be down to J.J. McCarthy for most of the season. It's going to depend on what he does. And especially to start the season, their record's going to be pretty bad. Their schedule is very brutal to start the year, and I'm not looking forward to it because I feel like the Vikings are going to be probably bottom 5 teams at the start of the year, and they're going to start to build themselves up near the end of the year. But there's going to be a lot of growing pains in Minnesota this year, I think, and that rounds out the top 24.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm a little bit biased because we hold the Vikings 2nd-round pick, so I want them to suck. So that becomes like a top 40, maybe even a top 35 pick, depending on how bad they are. I mean,
Please,
maybe it's a little biased, but yeah. Yes.
Glorified first rounder.
Yeah, exactly. But I just think the defense can be really bad after losing their best defensive player. I mean, Harrison Smith is getting up there in age. Eric Kendrick's up there in age. Like, they just don't. I don't think they have a lot of talent on the defense. I mean, Ivan Pace Jr. last year was a breakout. But
I think
there's not much there. He might.
Oh
yeah, you're right. He just. Sorry, he hasn't been good the last couple years. So
the one addition to the Vikings that really kept him from falling down so much was Andrew Van Ginkel. I liked him a lot. As much as I hated the Dolphins, I feel like he was very good, almost like a Matthew Judon level player without the pass rushing capabilities.
I think they have good linebackers, but the thing is, as much as linebacker, like if you have a good defense, linebackers can make your defense great. But if you have a bad defense, I don't think linebackers can make your defense good. Like
exactly.
I think a good D line can make a bad defense good or at least average, and a good secondary could do the same. But I don't think good linebackers can, because I think they're reliant on the other players around them more so than the other positions. I think because I think they're relying on like the corners to take away over the top so they can focus on the intermediate and the pass game, and then they're reliant on the D line to eat up blockers so they can have free reign in the run game. But if you have a good D-line / like good corners, and then you add in a great linebacker, it helps you take that next step, because now they have reigned like Roquan Smith with the Ravens. They added a top linebacker, and their defense went from good to great. I think the same thing with the Bills when we have Milano versus when we don't have Milano. You can see there's a huge difference because we have good players around him that when he's on the field, he can make plays. But then when he's not on the field, you can see, all right, we still have players and they can still make plays, but we're just missing that piece. But again, I think linebackers are the strength of the defense. I think the rest of it's weak. And then I think Sam Darnold starts, and I think that Sam Darnold's a little underrated. I mean, he's going to have good weapons. He's going to put up numbers. But Sam Darnold's – he's bottom – they have a bottom 5 quarterback in the league, like bottom 5 starting quarterback, and I think they might have a bottom 5 defense, maybe bottom 10 defense. Like, I mean, I guess Brian Flores being the defensive coordinator, he's going to get the most out of him. I just don't think there's a lot to get out of him.
Fun tidbit about that is Van Ginkel played under him for a couple of seasons.
I mean, that's probably why they brought him in. But we'll move on. 25, I have the Titans. I already said what I like about them. But at the same time, I think they have one of the worst quarterbacks in the AFC, even though I think even if Levis takes a step, it's just the quarterbacks in the AFC are just so deep. That defense, I don't think the defense is going to be that great. I mean, losing Derrick Henry, your franchise guy, even though I think he's a little overrated now, I think that may hurt. The offensive line, it's better. I think Skoronski takes a step. I don't think it was a good pick at pick 7 to take that tackle from Bama that they did, but I think it was a little bit of a reach. But I think the O-line will get better. They have an offensive-minded guy as their head coach now, which hopefully should help Will Levis. I think that receiving core is actually quite good with Calvin Ridley and D-Hop. So I like that. I think Okongwu is a good tight end. The running back duo is very good, but I just don't think they have enough talent yet to be able to compete with the top teams in the AFC. So that's why I have them there. The Saints at 26, they are the definition of mid, and they have a bunch. I mean, think about it. Who was the they are the they have a bunch of. They're mid. They're receiving core. I mean, they got Chris Olave, who's really good. Besides that, mid. Derek Carr, mid. Alvin Kamara is not that great anymore. Mid. Offensive line is just bad. Defense, kind of mid. I mean, maybe a little bit above defense. Above. I mean, if Chase Young has a breakout this year, him and Cam Jordan could be a very good, like pass rush. Demario Davis is still a stud. Marshawn Lattimore in that secondary is good, but coaching staff extremely mid. I think Dennis Allen probably is getting fired after this year, but I just think mid offense and bad coaching and all right defense. And then even in a weak division, there's not a lot to be inspired about them. And I guess in the offseason, when you're ranking teams, you're kind of projecting. So you got to see what is there to inspire you to make the reasoning behind it. There's just not much for the Saints where I can be like, oh, that's why they're going to be better the next year. Then at 27, I have the Giants. I think that offense is going to be bad, but I think that defense is going to be very, very good. But I just think that offense is going to be so bad it just won't matter. I think Daniel Jones sucks. The offensive line is going to suck. I mean, Devin Singletary's all right. I think Neighbors is going to be a beast. Tight end sucks. Receivers after Neighbor sucks. Like they have one good player in that offense. They traded out one good player and drafted one good player. Like, two, I guess. Andrew Thomas when he plays as a stud. I really like that defense, though. Dexter Lawrence, best interior defensive lineman in the game. I don't care. I think he's better than Chris Jones. I mean, I think that impact. I think he just that impact he has. I just think Chris Jones plays for the Chiefs and he plays for the Giants. I think nose tackles are just a little more impactful because he's one of those nose tackles that can also pass rush, and I think that's why it's so impactful. He eats up. I think he's the most double teamed like lineman in the game, and then still gets double digit sacks. Bobby Okereke is an extremely underrated linebacker. They just had Brian Burns, who is I think on the same line as Dexter Lawrence is going to absolutely eat. I think Dante Banks takes a step. I mean, they lost Xavier McKinney, but I think they replaced him well in the draft. So I think the secondary might be a little bit weak, but I really like that defense. They do have good coaching, but I just think the offensive talent is just so weak that it's going to hurt them. At 28, I have the Vikings. I already talked about that. 29, I have the Commanders. I know you said you like Jaden Daniels. You already know. I do not like Jaden Daniels. I think he's Justin Fields 2.0. And the number one thing against Jaden Daniels coming out of the draft, like statistically, is he was bad under pressure. He would run around. I mean, if you look at the base numbers, he put up a lot of good numbers because it's in college and he can just run around because he's more athletic than all these players. But in the NFL, you have to be able to throw the ball, and his throwing numbers were not that good. Like I forgot, I think it was like the Ringer, maybe. I think they did like this charting data, and it was like the percentage of what quarterbacks did under pressure. And like Jaden Daniels, like sack percentage was very high. His accuracy, like his on target throw percentage was just like worse than all the top 5 quarterbacks. His sack percentage was higher. His I'm going to go run was way higher than like it needed to be. Like under pressure, he just looks to go and run. He doesn't try to that's the difference between a running quarterback and a dual threat quarterback. Josh Allen, he's always going to look pass first, and under pressure, he's going to scramble. And while he's still like scrambling out of the pocket, he's still looking down the field to throw the ball. And that's why he's so elite, because the defenders have to respect that. So they're going to have to stay back. So when he does take off, he has all that room. Jaden Daniels, when he gets under pressure, he just looks to run right away. Defense are going to pick up on that, and they're going to play a lot tighter, and it's going to ruin those running lanes for him. So, yeah, he'll make some big plays. He's very, very athletic. And, I mean, having Terry McLaurin, he does have a very beautiful deep ball. I think some nice plays can happen out of that. But Jaden Daniels, as a rookie, extremely raw behind a bad offensive line, and that defense does not inspire me much. Dan Quinn, I think, was a bad hire, so I just think they're going to be very bad again. I have the Carolina Panthers at 30. I did tell you I think I'm a little higher in the Panthers because I think the adding of Deontay Johnson and Robert Hunt, DJ Chark. DJ Chark's at the Chargers. It was and it was Robert Hunt and Deontay Johnson. I think are gonna. I think they're going to be huge. Because the Panthers, they had good tackles, Taylor Morton and Ike Kenwu or whatever. I think they're very good tackles, even though Kenwu, yeah,
Ekamakwanu.
yeah, he did. Yeah, he didn't have a great year last year, but I still expect a nice step out of him. And Morton's a good tackle, but their interior offensive line was very bad last year. And now you had Robert Hunt, who's one of the best free agent guards available, and then Deontay Johnson, who I still think is a little bit overrated. I just think, after Big Ben retired, he didn't really have a quarterback. They didn't really have a quarterback that want to throw the ball a lot. Like, they weren't really a passing team. Under Big Ben, it was throw the ball a bunch of times a game. Then they turned into more this run-heavy team. George Pickens was developing, so like his numbers kind of got hurt because of that. But I think you have Bryce Young, who was the first overall pick last year. I think Dave Canales, he even said that they want to focus. I think he said, I want to focus my offense around one player. And then goes like, where's Deontay Johnson? Basically saying like Deontay Johnson's going to be the focal point of that offense. And I think last year, I think Bryce Young had a very underrated rookie year. His numbers didn't look great, but his receivers were like running into each other, creating no separation. His offensive line was awful. They went through the whole Frank Wright situation where he got fired midseason. It was just everything went wrong. And I just don't think that happens this year. I think the offense takes a step from them being a 1-win team. I think they probably have like 5, which it's about what the third worst team in the league. And then I have the Patriots at 31. I just think they're not there yet. I you know how much I love Drake May, but they just lack a lot of talent. And
Definitely.
they lack a lot of talent, and it's very questionable coaching. And then I have the Broncos at 32. I mean, I think they're the worst team in the league, and honestly, I think they're going to have like 1 win. That quarterback situation is bad. I think Bo Nix was a bad pick. They lack talent, but they also don't really have like. At least like the Patriots lack talent, but then it's like, all right, I think Drake May and Jacoby Brissett at least is like manageable. I think Bo Nix would be the QB3 on the Patriots right now, and he's the starter in Denver, and they also lack talent. Like, I mean, I still think Sean Payton's an all right coach. I think he'll be able to design a lot to try and make it easier on Nix, but they have one good receiver and Cortland Sutton, who's all right. Javonte Williams is all right. The all lines all right, but I don't think Bo Nix is good, so I think the offense is going to be bad. And then the defense was not good last year, and who do they really have to look forward to? Because they had to eat all that Russell Wilson money. They had to go and cut their best defensive player, and Justin Simmons, the second best. They have Pat Surtain, but I honestly don't know right now if I could name you a second player on that Broncos defense.
Honestly, there's a lot of different picks here. I feel like we're going to be very similar in a couple of these first ones, but number 25, I have the New Orleans Saints. I think, again, they're just the definition of mediocrity. You can really throw them anywhere in these next 3 or 4 slots. These next 4 teams I'm going to mention are all very interchangeable, very difficult for me to decide which one goes where. So 26, I go with the Seahawks here. I just don't like the Geno Smith thing. Sam Howell, I don't think is going to be all that amazing. He's struggled early on in camp right now, so it's going to be difficult to see what he does. Then I have 27, the Cardinals. I just don't know how much of a step the defense can take right now. While I do think the offense does get better, I think that defense is going to hold them back from winning a lot of these games. I feel like that offense is still going to struggle considering the chemistry issues with Marvin Harrison and Murray being this is going to be their first year together. Still think they put up good numbers, and same with Trey McBride, but I don't think it's enough to get them over the top with big games against other teams in that same brutal division that they're in the NFC West. And then 28, I have the Tennessee Titans. I really like the other 3 teams in this division so much more. That Titans linebacking core is really terrifying me, and the interior D-line has not been good for years now. Jeffrey Simmons lost a step last year. Not sure if he'll regain that step this season.
Denico Autry. Speaking of Titans, but Denico Autry got suspended 6 games, even though he's on the Texans now.
Yeah.
You made me remind of that. Sorry.
But yeah, of course, but there's still other things involved there. The offense, I think, will be a little bit better this year. It's just not sure how confident I am in Will Levis compared to any of the other guys. I think it's some of the other lower tier quarterbacks like an Anthony Richardson right now because he hasn't proven himself too much playing just 4 games. I still think he's better than him. I think that Tua clears. I feel like there's other quarterbacks in that division. Drake May, once he starts, I think he would be a little bit better of an option than a Will Levis too, potentially. It's right there on the cusp. So with that being said, there's a lot of teams in this conference. They may literally have the third worst quarterback in the conference, in my opinion, to start the year, just above the Patriots and the Broncos. And that really
and
scares me a
Oakland.
little.
I think Will Levis is
Las
better than
Vegas.
AOC and Minshew.
I
I
think
think
Minshew's a better quarterback. He's just a better game manager than Will Levis is. Will Levis is the Josh Allen where he tries to force things. And while Josh
he had
Allen
some
can
really
get
good
away
games
with
last year with
it,
that bad offensive line, though.
exactly. But the thing is he's pretty much a poor man's Josh Allen, to where he's going to look to make those plays. And right now, if he rolls out and he doesn't see something, forces it, and it becomes an interception, that's a big problem, because they don't have they don't have a good defense like the Bills do, where they can bail them out so often. With the Titans, one interception, there's 90% chance that the team that you're throwing that interception to is going to at least get a field goal out of that. And if they're going to at least get points win games, and it's going to make it very difficult on the Titans, in my opinion. Number 29 through 32 is the Giants, Broncos, Patriots, then Panthers. I think the Panthers remain dead last for the simple fact that Bryce Young is the only one I'm excited to see on that offense, aside from Deontay Johnson. I don't really care for the running back game. I feel like it's going to be a tough year in running back and tight end departments. Don't think that Jonathan Brooks, the rookie from Texas, is going to be all that great. I do not really care for that line really that much. I think the addition of Hunt's good, but they overpaid for him. We all knew it from the start. And with that being said, I feel like that defense takes a major step back after trading Brian Burns for a bag of chips on the side of the road, man, because realistically, you only get a second when you were offered 2 firsts a few years ago by the Rams is very tragic for them. They just couldn't let him go until it was too late, similar to Olmark with the Bruins, in my opinion. And when that happens, it just becomes tough, because you're in the middle of a rebuild right now and you need all the assets you can get. And you trade Brian Burns for a second round pick.
Yeah. Oh, it looks like Thomas may have lost a computer connection. We were about at the end of the show, but until he gets a computer connection back, I guess if he doesn't in time, I'll just end it. I want to bring up how the Yankees are now up 9-4. Aaron Judge is the greatest man to walk Earth. He had another 2 home runs tonight. The Yankees are back. The Yankees are back. The Yankees are back. We're winning the World Series. I don't care what anyone says. I'm a delusional Yankees fan. Deal with it. All right. So yeah, it was nice talking to you guys. I hope you all enjoyed this video and you like and subscribe. I'll see you guys next episode.
Hello, everybody. We did end up canceling the last little bit of this. I feel like this is a little rough. We have just 3 more picks left here. As welcome back, Alex.
I thought you said to end the stream, so I just
I got back in the computer's
I
didn't, so I'm gonna make this a little bit quick. But
I don't know how to end the stream, honestly. So
it's all right. My last teams were the Broncos and Patriots, 31 and 30. I think Denver has the worst quarterback room in the league this year. I think it's going to be tough with Bo Nix to really win a lot of those games. They probably finish with 2-3 at most, maybe 4 if they're lucky. And then on top of that, I feel like the New England Patriots play in one of the toughest divisions, having to play the Bills and the Jets twice a year. I think the Dolphins probably at worst split the season series with them. So at best right there, they probably have 1 or 2 wins in the division, which is not a very good look for them. So that's another problematic scene for them. And then the Giants, while I think the defense will be good, I think that offense is just horrendous. Daniel Jones is never going to hold a good place in my heart. It's not going to be easy for the Giants to succeed this year when the quarterback situation is that awful. Maybe next year if they can get a different guy in there, but realistically, that's my list. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in today. Of course, I'm your host, Thomas Bailey. Alex Miley alongside me here today. Thank you for joining the show, Alex. Appreciate you. Thank you, everybody who tunes into this. It's fun to do this. We spend so much time putting in effort to, bring a good presentation to you guys. So thank you all for tuning in and supporting us. We all appreciate it. And with that being said, make sure you like and subscribe if you did enjoy this episode of the Sports Lab podcast. We'll come back at you probably a week, somewhere around there.
Probably next week, depending on when we're both free.
Yeah, so if you guys enjoy this kind of content and want to see us more often, then you can, of course, hit the subscribe button. Thank you all for watching once again, and we'll see you guys next time on the Sports Lab podcast.